Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Thank you all so much for joining us today and giving us your very, very valuable association on the call. We are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Antya Lila 5.143 onwards, and our esteemed speaker today is His Grace Jayananda Gauranga Prabhu. Prabhuji, you can now take over the call. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Om Ajnanatimrantasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurum Meelitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscham Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayane Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagragrama Tarini Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Antya Lila, chapter 5, verse 143 to 145. Jarasandha kahe Krishna Purusha Adhama Tora Sange na Yujhima Yahi Bandhu Bhahan. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The demon Jarasandha chastised Krishna, saying, "You are the lowest of the human beings. I shall not fight with you, for you killed your own relatives. Purport. In this verse also, Mother Saraswati offers prayers to Krishna. The word Purusha Adhama refers to the personality of Godhead under whom all other persons remain. Or in other words, Purusha Uttama, the best of all living beings. Similarly, the word Bandhuhan means the killer of Maya. In the conditioned state of life, one is closely related with Maya as a friend, but when one comes in contact with Krishna, one is freed from that relationship. Yaha haite anya purusha sakala adhama, sei haya purushadhama sarasvatira mana. Mother Saraswati takes Purushadhama to mean Purushottama, he to whom all men are subordinate. Bande sabare thate avidya bandhuhaya, avidya nashaka bandhuhan shabde kaya. Nescience or Maya may be called Bandhu, but she entangles everyone in the material world. Therefore, by using the word Bandhuhan, Mother Saraswati says that Lord Krishna is the vanquisher of Maya. Purport. Everyone is entangled in the illusory energy, but as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Mameve prapadyanti mayametantaram titi, is as soon as one surrenders to Krishna, he is freed from Maya. Therefore, Krishna may be called as Bandhuhan, the killer of Maya. So we're going to stop there, and then we'll start with the discussion today. So I'm going to cover two learning objectives for the day. One is, the shorter one is going to be about explain how Mother Saraswati plays a role in the service of Krishna. And the second, we're going to talk about the relationship, to explain the relationship between Jiva, Maya, and Krishna. So let's start with the first learning objective here, which is Saraswati Devi is referred to in all these verses that we read today. And if we look at the scriptures, she is repeatedly quoted in her service towards Krishna. For example, even when Lord Vamana appeared at that time, the different devas, they had given different offerings to Lord Vamana. And for instance, Prachoditha yena pura Saraswati. So in the Bhagavatam, Canto 8, chapter 8, verse 16, it says that the goddess of learning, Saraswati, supplied the necklace when Lord Brahma supplied the lotus flower. The inhabitants of Nagaloka supplied the earrings. So we then have the description of how what Indra gave, what the Brihaspati, that is the Jupiter gave, and so on. So in this way, Saraswati Devi has always been cited in her service towards Krishna. And even Sridhara Swami, one of the commentators who has been celebrated by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, in his commentary in the 10th canto, 87th chapter, verse 1 in the Bhagavatam, he cites actually that Lord Narasimha Deva is always assisted by Saraswati Devi, the goddess of learning. And when Lord Narasimha is always embracing the goddess of fortune to his chest, but Saraswati Devi is always the assistance of Lord Narasimha Dev. So we saw two examples here. One where Goddess Saraswati is in service of Lord Vamana Dev, and then in service of Lord Narasimha Dev. And we can frequently see the citations of Saraswati Devi's service towards Krishna towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrta. So let me give you one instance in the Adi Lila, where Saraswati Devi's service is cited in addition to this particular verse. In those days, there were, just as there are many sport activities today, in those days, the main activity was in terms of learning. So there were many learned scholars in India who were champions in learning. And they traveled across the country to establish their scholarship. And in return, whoever lost in that debate with them, they used to join their retinue and move along with those champions. So one such person was called Keshava Kashmiri. So this was something that was covered during the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Keshava Kashmiri, he is coming from the state of Kashmir. So and he traveled all over India, and he is called as Digvijaya Pandit. Digvijaya means wherever he goes, he gets victory. In whichever direction he travels and whomever he debates with, he gets a victory. And therefore, he traveled all over India, and everywhere he has established victory. And he was a great upasaka. Upasaka means they are usually shaktas who are they exhibit a lot of austerities towards usually towards Shakti. And here he was a great upasaka of Saraswati Devi. And so he has argued, he has debated in many kingdoms, and Goddess Saraswati had a lot of compassion towards him, and he was merciful towards Keshava Kashmiri. So, and when he traveled all over India, he then came to the city of Navadvip, and there where he challenged the scholars there. Navadvip was a great center of learning. And we see that throughout the history, it has produced many, many great scholars, and it was a seat of learning. And when he had come there, at the time there was not anybody, no one there really wanted to argue and with Keshava Kashmiri. But then at the time, Mahaprabhu was a teacher of Sanskrit grammar, and Sanskrit grammar is a pretty hard subject. But then when Keshava Kashmiri saw Mahaprabhu by the river Ganga reciting, teaching grammar, at that time Keshava Kashmiri joined the group, and then all his at that time here we have already seen these things in the Adi Lila, that he recited 100 verses in praise of the river Ganga. And then Mahaprabhu asked him to ask Keshava Kashmiri to explain the guna dosha. Guna means the merits, and the dosha, which is the faults in his verses. But then Keshava Kashmiri did not find that Mahaprabhu had the qualifications to ask this question, because Mahaprabhu was, after all, a teacher of Sanskrit grammar. And so he does not have the authority to question over the poetry of a Digvijay Pandit. And that's understandable. But then, so Keshava Kashmiri immediately told Mahaprabhu, he was called Nimai at the time, and then he said, which verse do you think I should comment? So the speed at which Keshava Kashmiri recited those verses, it's really impossible to even remember what is even the starting verse. But Mahaprabhu took a verse from somewhere in between those 100 verses and then recited it verbatim. And the verse was, Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Idam Abhati Nitaram Yadesha Sri Vishnu Charana Kamalotpatti Subhaga Dvitiya Shri Lakshmiriva Suranarer Archya Charana Bhavani Bharthu Ya Sirashi Vibhati Adbhuta Gunaha. So this is the verse. And then, so Keshava Kashmiri was really very astounded at how Mahaprabhu could just take a verse from somewhere in between and then just recite it as it is. And then Keshava Kashmiri said that all that this verse has is just merits, guna, and there is no dosha, there is no fault in this verse at all. And but then Mahaprabhu said, okay, there are 5 merits and there are a couple of faults as well. And Mahaprabhu recites a couple of faults for them. For example, when he says, Mahaprabhu tells in the first line of this verse, if you see, it says, Mahatvam Gangaya Satatam Idam Abhati Nitaram. So the letter Ta keeps coming repeatedly in the first line. But then if we look at the third line, it says, Dvitiya Shri Lakshmir Iva Sura Narer Archya Charana. The letter Ra keeps, the syllable Ra keeps coming again and again. And if you look at the last line, it says Bhamani Bharturya Sirashi Bhibhavati Adbhuta Gunaha. So the syllable Ba keeps, Bha keeps coming repeatedly. So this figure of speech, which is called alliteration, has been followed in line 1, line 3, line 4, but it has not been followed in line 2, which just says Yadesha Sri Vishnu Charana Kamalotpati Subhagha. So that particular line does not have any alliteration at all. And therefore, so either you put for all the 4 lines or you put for none. You don't put like just for 3 lines and let go 1 line. So, and then he says, and Mahaprabhu, he points out further instances where he says, Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi Riva. The word Lakshmi means Mahalakshmi. The word Shri also means Mahalakshmi. So there is a redundancy there, Shri Lakshmi, but even if we take the word Shri to even mean a respectful form, you have also used the word Dvitiya, that means, and therefore it is quite ununderstandable. Dvitiya means like a second, as though there is like a second Lakshmi. And then maybe I'll cite one more thing here where Mahaprabhu says you have used the word Bhavani Bhartuhu. The word Bhavani comes from the word Bhavishya Patni. Bhavishya, Bhava is Lord Shiva, and his wife is called Bhavishya Patni Bhavani Bhartuhu. So that means it looks as though the Lord Shiva has, as though Parvati Devi has like a second husband, and this word Bhavani Bhartuhu, so it cannot be used in that way, as so it is like husband's wife's husband. So that's a big fault there. And then he also points like one more, for example, it says Vibhavati Adbhuta Gunaha. Vibhavati itself means a lot of qualities, auspicious qualities, and so on. Adbhuta Gunaha again means the same thing. Visheshena Bhavat. The word Vibhavati in Sanskrit comes from the word Visheshena Bhavati Vibhavati. So there are many auspicious qualities. So Vibhavati. And then it follows by the words Adbhuta Gunaha. So again, there is a redundancy there. You say Adbhuta Gunaha, there is a lot of good qualities. And then you also prefix it with the word Vibhavati. So again, there is redundancy there. So in this way, Mahaprabhu tells all these things. And then Keshava Kashmiri is very, very unhappy with this whole process. And then because he belonged to a very respectable Brahmana family from Kashmir. And then but then Mahaprabhu, then he also, because he's the supreme personality of Godhead, he also pacifies Keshava Kashmiri by saying, please don't worry about this, because it's not like I'm minimizing the value of your poetry. Your composition is so nice. But he says there are only two people who can really understand your composition. One is yourself, and the other is your worshipable mother, the goddess of learning, Saraswati Devi. Other than you two, probably nobody is really going to understand this. But then Keshava Kashmiri was really a very, very favorite devotee of Mother Saraswati and the goddess of learning. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, since he is the master of the goddess of learning, he has the right to speak sarcastically of her devotees. In other words, although Keshava Kashmiri was very proud because he is being very favored by the goddess of learning, he did not know that the goddess Saraswati herself, is controlled by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the supreme personality of Godhead. And therefore, Keshava Kashmiri is thinking, this is a mere boy, Nimai Pandit. He's only like about 12 years old at the time, and he has blocked my intelligence. And therefore, Keshava Kashmiri thinks that he can understand that Mother Saraswati has become angry with him. So the super soul, Krishna, is present in everybody's heart as super soul, as Paramatma. And he has given the Pandita, the Keshava Kashmiri Pandit, the intelligence to understand that, because he was very proud of his learning. And he wanted to defeat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by the will of the Lord, and through the agency of Mother Saraswati Devi, Keshava Kashmiri was defeated that day. So one should not therefore be too proud of one's position. So even if one is a great learned scholar, if he commits an offense to the lotus feet of the Lord, he will not be able to speak properly in spite of his learning. In every respect, we are controlled. Therefore, that means that we do not have as far as the material nature is concerned, we are controlled in every respect. So therefore, our only duty is to surrender always to the lotus feet of the Lord and not to be falsely proud. Therefore, Mother Saraswati here, she created a situation to favor the champion Digvijaya Pandit, Keshava Kashmiri, so that he might surrender into the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. So Saraswati Devi, in fact, induced Keshava Kashmiri to compose this verse in an impure way. In that way, it was discussed and she covered his intelligence, and thus the Lord's intelligence was triumphant. But that day, Keshava Kashmiri was very unhappy about all this. He went home and then he thought about all this, that how he has been, because he has been traveling across India, and then he has won in different kings' courts and in different learned scholars he has defeated. But then in front of a small boy here, whom he thinks is Nimai Pandit, they call him as Gauranga Pandit. And then he thinks like, how is it that he has been defeated? And since he was a great Upasaka of Saraswati Devi, she appears in front of him. And he hears from Goddess Saraswati herself, Arya Jani Hitam Sakshat Krishnam Gauranga Pandita. Arya means a civilized person. You think you're a civilized person. Jani Hitam, please get to know. Sakshat Krishnam. Gauranga Pandita. So this Gauranga Pandit, you think that he's some Nimai Pandit, Gauranga Pandit, but then understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Arya Jani Hitam Sakshat Krishnam Gauranga Pandito. Yasya Bhaktim Vinat Dhyanam Nikhilam Nishphalam Bhavet. So it is unto him that you actually even spoke today. So, and then it's further recited, Shastra Bhagam Kim Bhagasi Prajnava Nasi Pandita Tat Padambujho Bhashitya Kuru Janardani. So this person whom you're talking to is not some ordinary person that you're calling as Nimai Pandit, or you're calling himself as Gauranga Pandit, but then he is none other than the Supreme Lord Janardana, Kim Kuru Janardani. So this person, so she says, Arya Jani Hitam Sakshat Krishnam Gauranga Pandita Yasya Bhaktim Vinajnanam Nikhilam Nishphalam Bhavet. So please understand that he's a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shastra Bhagam Kim Bhagasi Prajna Va Nasi Pandita Tat Padam Bujho Vachitya Kuru Janardani. This is the same Janardana who appeared in the field, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and who is the same Janardana is appeared in front of you, and he is narrating these things. So in this way, in the Chaitanya Charitamrta, the Saraswati Devi is cited in a number of places where she has assisted in the service of Krishna. And in many places we can see how she has helped different devotees understand the glories of Lord Krishna. And with that description of, and in the same way, in these particular verses that we have seen, we again see how Saraswati Devi, even though they are incorrectly describing the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, Krishna, and so some examples are cited here by Swarupa Damodar Goswami of where Shishupala had described Krishna in different ways, and then Jarasandha had described Krishna in different ways. But in all those places, Saraswati Devi also gives another meaning to that. In that way, even something which is considered as not a praise, Saraswati Devi converts that as a praise towards Krishna. Let's move towards the second learning objective here among the three verses that we discussed today, and explain the relationship between Jiva, the Jiva soul, that is the individual living soul, Maya, which is the illusory potency of the Lord, and then Krishna. So the actual truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything merges to rest. So it's sometimes when we see it is very hard for us to live in this world, and given the extensive influence of Maya, therefore, maybe I'm going to speak a few things here about how a devotee manages things in this world and how a materialist manages. So it's difficult to understand the consciousness of a real devotee for his living in his relationship with Krishna, even while in this world. So even when a devotee is living in this world, he or she has a relationship with Krishna. So there are two kinds of viewpoints that's possible. One is seeing things in relationship with Krishna, and second viewpoint is seeing things from a worldly viewpoint. A devotee or allows his relationship with Krishna to dictate how he sees this world. That means he does not independently identify with the drama of this world. So let's say that there is a drama that is being enacted in the theater, and one may have a gain in inheritance, and then suddenly in the drama one may be stabbed. But as an actor, the person knows that both his gain and loss are temporary. That means when curtain falls and he knows that he can pull the false knife out of him and he's back, and then he can return all the money back to the owner. So only an intoxicated or a crazy actor will actually identify with the part he or she played during the drama. That means an actor wears a costume in the material world and he wears a body. Okay, so when we come into this world, we identify, so we wear a costume, that is the body that we wear. Neither the part nor the costume constitutes that real person. So aside from the part that he has played, an actor has a real life outside the theater. So devotees are awake to their real eternal life with Krishna, and they see their part in this world from that perspective. So devotees want to play their parts well, but when the director Krishna indicates to them that it's time to leave the stage, they recognize his signs and then they prepare to exit. So they know that as soon as the show is over, they will meet their dear friend Krishna, and that the devotees, they play their part and they never forget this because they are awake to their real relationship with Krishna. Although they take as extremely serious as their devotional offering, they take their role, whatever role Krishna gives them to play in this world, they take it very seriously, but they nevertheless know that they possess another eternal identity. So on one level, we naturally see the misfortune of the living entities. So the different living entities here, they are put here into perpetual misfortune. But in addition, they possess another eternal identity. And that is so in one level, they have the misfortune that the living entities are forced to leave their position. And on the other hand, they must acknowledge the supremacy of Krishna's plan. Thus, one can learn to become more malleable to Krishna's desire. For example, King Parikshit, I'll give you this example of King Parikshit. From his emperorship, he was said that he's going to face death in 7 days. And one can learn from him how we can focus to gain from the same perfection that King Parikshit attained by going back to Godhead. Therefore, the devotees are naturally faultless. The pure devotees are naturally faultless, but accidental sins, in an accidental way, they can commit sins accidentally, which are sincerely regretted. And by the grace of the Lord, all those sins that are unwillingly committed by the devotee are burned in the fire of repentance. So a man's personal misconduct, in fact, affects all his family members. And therefore, that person desires that the calamity just fall upon him alone. And by suffering personally, he would be restrained from future sins. And at the same time, the sin which he had committed would be counteracted so that his descendants would not suffer. So the classic example we can see is King Parikshit himself. He was very fortunate in that case that he got a 7-day notice to meet his inevitable death. But for the common man, there is no definite notice, although death is inevitable for all. So foolish men forget that this sure fact of death and neglected duty, and they do not prepare themselves to go back to Godhead. Therefore, to be free from all material association means to cease, to completely stop from committing any further sins. That means to meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord That means to free oneself from the effects of all the previous sins. Prarabdha, aprarabdha, all karma, all the previous sins to be free from. The conditions of the material world, a point that I want to emphasize here, the conditions of the material world is that one has to commit sin, either willingly or unwillingly. Either willingly one commits sin, or unwillingly one is forced to commit sin. And the best example of that is Maharaj Parikshit himself, because when he put the dead snake over that sage, um, it was unwillingly, but it was forced to happen that way. But then a devotee recognizes his sins, but then he also becomes a victim of an offense, even though he is ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. So in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, he was cursed, but because he was a great devotee of the Lord, even such reverses of life are favorable. So the principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in his life, but one should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without deviation. Only in such a mood will the Lord help the devotee to make regular progress towards the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, so in this way, willingly or unwillingly, we are committing offenses, committing sins in this world. And even though we should try our best to not willingly commit any sins, but by remembering the lotus feet of the Lord will make sure that we do not unwillingly commit those sins. So that means that our incorrect perception of this material world is that like is that the material world is like a dream. So all that exists is actually the spiritual world. So when you dream at night, you perceive the things that are happening in the dream to be real. You think that it's real. You think that you're crying. You think that you're getting hurt in your dream, but you're not really getting hurt at all. And there is no one really hurting you. But you get an impression of factuality, as though something is factual, but still it's a dream. So what is the use of this dream? So why are we taking part in this drama in this world? Because even in that dream, there is a benefit. And what is the benefit? Even in that dream, there is one reality. And that is Krishna can be realized even in that dream. The reality, God, can be seen in that dream, and we can wake up out of the dream and get back to the real world, which is the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. So the advantage of having this human body is that even in that dream, the Lord is so merciful that even in the dream, he comes into the dream and presents the reality to us. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, therefore he says Jagrata. So get up from the dream. And it's frequently cited in many verses, many places. It's cited about Uttishta. They want us to get up from this dream. So the Bhagavatam itself starts with the first verse itself says Muhyanti. So that means that the manifested internal, so the Lord has an internal potency which is real, whereas the external manifested energy, which is the material existence, it's temporary and it is illusory, like the mirage in the desert. But is that illusion real? Yes, there is an illusion, and that illusion is real. Okay, there is an illusion. So, so when one sees the mirage of a lake on desert, in the desert sands, one perceives the image of a water in the sand. There is such a thing as water, but when one perceives water in a desert sand, then he's seeing an illusion. So even though one has the capacity to perceive water in the desert or to mistake a rope for a snake. All these things, snake, water, the desert sand, the rope, all of them are real. In the same way, even though one might misinterpret that this material world is their true home, it is the mirage is based on a fact. Once the actual home, which is the spiritual world of Vrindavan, is that is the objective reality. The objective reality is a spiritual world, which is Vrindavan. The Vaikuntha planets is the objective reality. But then it is this objective reality that lends the credence or the belief into this mirage, which is in the material world. So under the illusion spell, the living entity seeks the eternal love and happiness in this material world. So, but neither the eternal love nor the eternal happiness exists in this material world. Rather, each exists as an objective reality in the spiritual world. So what exists as objective reality, it's only in the spiritual world. So in this world, in this material world, all we see is only mirages of what actually exists in the Vaikuntha. So under illusion, one imposes these desirable conceptions. Whatever we desire, we impose it on this ephemeral realm of this matter, so that, and this we become frustrated. So we become frustrated by imposing these conceptions on this ephemeral realm. So yet, even though Maya facilitates the living entities into this illusion, but it is not separate, and it is that as though it is separate from the so this Maya is Krishna's energy, and it's fully dependent on Krishna. Therefore, usually this energy, this illusory energy of Krishna, the Maya, is so strong that any desire appears extraordinarily important. We have so many desires in life, and all of them appear extraordinarily important. Through his Maya, Krishna, even the greatest of the Devas, the Shiva, Lord Shiva is called as Mahadeva, the greatest of the demigods, greatest of the Devas, and Brahma, even they are bewildered. What to speak of ordinary living entities like us in this material world, that it makes look like as though the material world is real, even though it is not, because the spiritual world is real. So this means that there appears to be a reality. However, because the true reality exists in the spiritual world, where the personality of the Godhead exists in his transcendental paraphernalia. So with all this transcendental paraphernalia, Krishna exists in the spiritual world in all his glories in the Bhagavan feature. That realm of Krishna's abode and the place where he performs his eternal pastimes can be distinguished from this world by its absence of material illusion. So that is a distinct difference to, if we are asked what is it that's distinguishing the eternal spiritual world and this material world, and it can be distinguished by the absence, the Vaikuntha planetary systems can be distinguished by the absence of this material illusion. So the Bhagavatam is meant to free its hearers from this tinge of material consciousness so that they may enter into Krishna's abode. So that is all the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, which in this particular verse, Swarupa Damodar Goswami is narrating. In actuality, there is no reality in our perception of this manifested world. So I don't want to confuse people here. So is this, what is the, so I want to, let me distinguish here between what is Maya according to the followers in the Mayavada philosophy of Shankaracharya, and I will tell you what is Maya according to the Vedic scriptures as it is. So according to the Mayavada philosophy, propounded and expounded by Shankaracharyas, this manifested material world or the material world is mithya or maya. That is, it is false. So their preaching principle is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. That is, that the Brahman effulgence is true and that the cosmic manifestation is illusory or false. Okay, so the central tenet of the Mayavada philosophy is that whenever they find anything like a personality, when Lord Vishnu has his form, or in that matter, it doesn't even matter whether it's Vishnu, any deva, any god, demigod, when they have a form, they have a quality, characteristic, all that is an illusion, according to them, that it is not real. They consider that everything that has qualities or manifestation of that illusion or Maya, indeed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself appears in this world as, and that itself is Maya. But this exactly contrasts Krishna's sayings in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Maya Dakshena Prakritau Suyate Characharam, that this material energy is working under Krishna's direction. Om Purnamadaha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. From a complete whole Krishna, whatever you extract out of it, that is also whole. So the absolute truth is perfect, complete, and all the emanations coming out of the absolute truth are also complete. And so all of his divine energies are also perfect and complete. That means that the Vaishnava sees everything in relationship with Krishna. Even in this material world, by such advanced knowledge, everything becomes spiritualized. In other words, everything in this material world is already spiritual. But due to our lack of knowledge, avidya, we see these things as material. So that means that if when we have loving devotional service to the Lord, how it begins by first hearing about the Lord. So there is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. So the Lord is absolute in all respects, that there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all the material afflictions that I spoke about. So a living entity develops a sort of complexity by material association, and by his illusory engagement of the material body, he has accepted this material body, and whatever he's seeing, this is my son, that's my daughter, this is my wife, this is my husband, all of this, the living entity is accepted as an actual fact. But under such false complexity, the living beings, they are actually a different category. So they can actually, they are called marginal energy as tatashta shakti. They become illusioned in so many different ways. So even in the most developed stage of human life, the same illusion prevails. Even very advanced, there are so many human species. There are so, even in the most advanced stages, this illusion prevails. And in the form of so many isms. So they're divided into so many so-called loving, but so by hearing the subject matter, so what, hearing the subject matter of the crux of the Vedanta Sutra, all the subject matter of the Vedanta is there in this one scripture called as the Srimad Bhagavatam. This, what happens by repeatedly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of this materialism is removed. And the real peace in society will begin. So we have many politicians who aspire. So Prabhupada says that there are many politicians who aspire for, and they are so eager in so many political situations. And Prabhupada says that the politicians want a peaceful situation between two men, between two nations. But at the same time, because of excessive attachment for material domination, all there is only two things. One is there is illusion, and number two, there is fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring, so they have so many conferences to bring peace. It cannot bring any peace into society. It does not matter who the leader of the nation is. It cannot bring any peace, no matter what they do. It can only be done by hearing the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The foolish politicians may go on holding peace conferences. Prabhupada says they can just go on with all these conferences, but they will fail to achieve any success of achieving peace. So we need to go reach the stage of re-establishing our relationship, the lost relationship with Krishna. Then the illusion of accepting this body as self will, until then, this illusion will prevail. And what is the outcome of that? It is fearfulness. So as far as the validity of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we see that in hundreds and thousands of evidences throughout the revealed scriptures. And there are hundreds and thousands of personal experiences of devotees in Vrindavan, Navadvip, different Vaishnavas, and in Puri. And in fact, the conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have a direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And thereby, one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending all the worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. So in this world, there will be miseries, constant miseries. Either we are aware of it or we are unaware of it. But the world is full of miseries. And there is fearfulness. And these practical tests for one. So every day, everything that we do is a test for us. So that are we able to submissively hear to the readings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So as long as we are under the grips of the material illusory energy, mama maya duratyaya, it's very hard to get over. So as long as we are under this illusion of Maya, there is no scope of being fearless. Therefore, if we want to become fearless, we have to come out of that illusion. And the only person who can help us there is Krishna himself. So that is the, so with this, we covered 2 learning objectives for this morning. And one of this we saw, based on these verses, we saw the role played by Saraswati Devi in her service towards Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And then we also saw here, we described here the relationship between Jiva, Maya, and Krishna. The reason why we spoke so much about this subject is based on this verse where Jarasandha is speaking about the word that Krishna is the killer of the relatives like Bandhu, but then Bandhu also here means attachment, that he's a killer of attachment. So Krishna can sever our connections with this material attachment and pull us out of this material pool. So with that, I will stop and we'll open this for any discussion. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarvyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting class. I thank you for speaking about Bandhuha and how actually reading Srimad Bhagavatam is the means. I think that is so beautiful, especially the very first verse, as you quoted, also speaks a bit about it. And it is definitely, and also you give the example of Parikshit Maharaj. Very, very nice, Prabhu. Prabhu, my question was more to do with the Adi Lila verses about his Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conversation with Keshva Kashmiri. And this particular, of course, Bhavani, I understood, and then I did understand the other elements of poetry that he was describing about repetitive swaras and all that I could get. But this Sri Lakshmi, right? So Sri also means Lakshmi, Lakshmi also means Lakshmi. So it's repetitive. I understood only till there. But then what was the previous thing? There was another word prior to that. Can you explain that in context with these two again? I mean, I just missed that part because Sri Lakshmi is also something that is commonly said in so many stutis and other places. So how did that become an error in this context? Can you throw some more light on that, please?
Thank you, Mataji. The verse, as I had said, is a verse composed by Keshava Kashmiri. So the third line of the verse is what Mataji has asked here. Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi Revasura Narera Archya Charana Bhavani Bartu Yasrashi Vibhavati Adbhuta Gunaha. So that's the verse. So that verse, the line there is Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi Reva. So that here, so there the one thing which I pointed out is in the word Dvitiya Shri Lakshmi. So the word Shri and Lakshmi, okay, can Shri is Mahalakshmi and Lakshmi is Lakshmi as well, but that's okay, even if that's okay. But then he has used the prayoga, which is called the phrase called Dvitiya, which means that there is a second all opulent goddess of fortune. So the quality of being a second Lakshmi, okay, is the unknown. So in making this, so he made this compound word. That means the meaning, okay, so and then the original meaning has been lost. Okay, and then he's used he started the thing with the word second, dvitiya, which is actually unknown. So what is it which is dvitiya in its combination? So and so this is something to do with this part called as compounding words in Sanskrit, and so that the intended meaning of using it for Mahalakshmi is then lost. So that's what it basically means, Mataji.
So basically using Dvitiya in the beginning, and it's not meaning indicative. It's not indicative of something in the immediate sense, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, Dvitiya is the unknown. So he places the unknown first, and then on top of that Dvitiya, and then he used Sri, and then he used Lakshmi. So it gives a meaning like also that as though there is a second Lakshmi. There is Mahalakshmi, and then there is another Lakshmi other than her.
Okay, yeah, I think I get it. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Very good.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna.
A couple things. One is, can you elaborate on why peace is not possible among those who are not aware of the knowledge in the Bhagavatam?
Can you repeat your question, Mataji? Sorry.
Yes. You were saying that those like heads of state who are trying to achieve peace, right? But they're trying to do so without awareness of the knowledge in the Bhagavatam. Can you elaborate on why that is not possible?
So in the that's not actually what I said. That's Prabhupada said that. So I just merely cited what Prabhupada said. It is actually from a purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so where Prabhupada says that many people, politicians, even if they want a peaceful situation, they want two nations to cooperate, all the people to cooperate within each other. But then the reason why such solutions are just not possible is because of excessive material attachment towards domination. And then because they are still operating in the illusory platform, they're still operating in the illusory platform, and they themselves are operating full of fear. So how can a person who is already fully under the control of illusion, who's fully illusioned and fearful, what is the output going to be? The output is also going to be it's not going to give anything. So that's anything that is of a real value to people. So you need when a real peace is possible when someone is the person who is propounding those the peace formula, who is above illusion, and who is fearless, and who has understood that he's not the body, and who has understood his constitutional position as the servant of Krishna. And in that situation, they are able to make decisions which are fearless and in the absolute platform, and in a platform which is purely selfless and for the benefit of the society. So that means that one does need a spiritual advisor who is able to explain to them the principles of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the crux of, which is the mature fruit of the Vedanta, and be able to run the society according to those principles. Then everybody's happy. So is that okay, Mataji?
Yeah, I think when you were explaining, I was remembering also that, if you don't understand that everything belongs to Krishna, then you will have that sense of ownership, and so if you think you own something and somebody else thinks they own something, and but like we often hear that everybody's competing for the same resources, so for that reason conflict will always be there also. Yeah, I did have one other question when you said that sometimes we are forced to sin. So I was wondering if that applies only to pure devotees. Let's say for the like there was the example of Parikshit Maharaj. For the sake of giving instructions to conditioned souls, is it only they who are forced to sin, or by Krishna, or is it would you say that happens to conditioned souls also sometimes?
So so you're saying that who would only pure devotees be able to seek that kind of a path which Parikshit Maharaj, like Parikshit Maharaj?
No. I'm referring to your statement that sometimes we are forced to sin. Even though we don't want to, we are forced to. I was referring to that statement. Do you remember that?
So willingly or unwillingly, we are forced to commit sins. Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I was trying to understand that better. Why would we be forced to sin even against our will?
So the reason is this: that is the world is designed to produce misery. So that means that, and when would one be miserable? When one commits sins, then they'll have to take the, they'll have to suffer the consequences for those sins in the subsequent lifetimes. So, and we have those sins accumulated from so many lifetimes in the past. And therefore, if we are not put in that kind of a situation, we are never going to wake up from this dream of this so-called reality that we have accepted in this material world. And so that is the wake-up call. So that means that one is forced to commit the sins willingly or unwillingly, so that they are subject to the threefold miseries of this world. And in that way, one is as you can see, if everything is perfect, everything is happy, then the
impetus
to go towards Krishna is going to become weak. And that is why even Kunti Devi, for such an exalted devotee like her, she says that the best realizations are possible when there is a lot of miseries. Miseries are good. Miseries are good for a devotee. They accept them well because that means Krishna really likes them. Miseries are good and we accept them. The more the miseries are, the more Krishna is favorable. And we view that from Krishna's perspective, when we are able to view it, then it is good. But then when we look at the misery from a materialist perspective, then it will lead to all kinds of
misery
and that and this and all this.
Yeah, so okay, so I think I understand you better now, because when you say that we are forced to sin. I think you're talking about the force of our karma, right? It's not that,
Yes.
Because of how we behaved in the past, even though we might not want it, like an alcoholic, right?
Yes.
He doesn't desire to drink, but because of his past karma, he feels forced to. So that's the kind of force you were referring to?
Yes. So for instance, like, let's say that you're just speaking something, it's not like every word, if it is, as Rupa Goswami says, that we have to control our tongue, as the first verse of Upadeshamrita, as nectar of instruction, even then it's not possible. It's just simply impossible by our own effort to make sure that every word we speak is perfect, sinless. No matter what we do, somebody is going to get offended. Sins are automatically going to happen, and we don't even know how many sins we are committing every second. We don't even know that, and therefore those unwillingly committed sins, Krishna will take care by surrender. And so we can bring down slowly the offenses, that are the sins that we're committing willingly.
Okay, so the unwilling ones, that's just due to being human, or because being human means imperfect.
Correct.
So for that reason you will commit sins.
Yes, it will happen on its own. Either it's happening because of your karma, but it will happen. Even if whatever you do, it will happen. See, the way for us, the way to get rid of all the karma is to, for once in our eternal life, we speak the word Krishna truly. The true, like with full, pure devotion. We just need to say the word Krishna only once. All our karma, prarabdha, all the karma will get vanquished. But if we are still facing miseries, that means that we have not said the word Krishna with purity even once so far.
Okay, and saying Krishna with purity means there's not even the slightest tinge of any kind of material desire, even unconscious.
That means that you have got rid of all, none of those offenses are there. By aparad, nama aparada, there, none of the offenses towards Krishna's name are there. And number two, and there is no semblance of the name as well, called as nama abhash. So there's no nama abhash, there's no nama aparad. Then we can move towards what is called as shuddha nama, pure name. We narrate once, and then all the sins are vanquished. And then we narrate the name Krishna for a second time purely. Then at that time, we will be able to enter into the spiritual world of Goloka Vrindavan for having the eternal pastimes with Krishna. And therefore, so we are all striving. The regular practice, what we are doing every day, chanting the names of Krishna, is in order for us to be able to say the word Krishna at least once purely at some point of time.
Sounds like a tall order. Yeah.
Because we cannot have any sins. If we want to go to Vaikuntha, there cannot be any karma left. And that on our own, we are not going to be able to get rid of that karma. So there is mama maya duratyaya mame prapadanti maya mita. Without on our own, it's duratyaya. It's very hard to do it. But then with Krishna's help, and by repeated practice, and by his mercy, that is his costless mercy is required, somewhere or somehow he comes and pulls us out.
Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That image behind you, I'm sure you've said it in other classes, but what is that image?
Oh, this is a different temple. I changed the picture. The last time it was a deity of Krishna in the city of Madurai called as Kudal Aragar. And this is a city which is next to it, and it is the deity there is called Kallaragar. So this is a different temple there. This is a different Vishnu temple, very, very beautiful deity, and extremely beautiful deity. So this is a different thing. I changed the background. Thank you.
And what town? What town is it?
It is near Madurai, the city of Madurai in the south, and but the deity's name is Kallaragar. So it's it's a form of Krishna with it is four-handed form of Krishna.
Yes, it's South India, but what state? I couldn't.
In Tamil Nadu.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, beautiful temple.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
There are like a lot of hills around this temple, and it's like a big fort. And the temple is huge. It's a huge temple, and it's like, I think some kings at the time, they built a huge fort around the temple, and there are a lot of mountains nearby, and I don't know, mountains or hills, whatever is the correct thing, some hills nearby. And I think they go to the top of the hill, bring some water from there, from that lake to the deity there. It's a very beautiful neighborhood. I had visited this place with my parents. They took me there a couple of years ago to this temple. So
Yeah, I mean the intricacy of the work makes it look like the eighth wonder of the world.
yes, it's very beautiful. Yeah, my father arranged all this travel. He helps me go to different temples when I visit India. So, but for him, I would have not been able to visit. So, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in Chaitanya Charitamrta, in the South India Yatra of Mahaprabhu, he does visit this place, and it's called as Rishabhadri, mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Rishabha Hills. So that is where this temple is. It's a very, very beautiful temple.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for adding that.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams, all
Hare Krishna.
glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Prabhu, I just have a question. So Krishna's mercy is available for everybody, and it is, as you said, costless. Sometimes there is no cost to his mercy, but again, when you look at the devotees, they put in endeavor to get the mercy. So does it mean the endeavor helps you to get the mercy faster, even though it can be costless? I mean, available to all, meaning all sects of people. So we also read from Bhagavatam that the Lord is impartial according to people's desire. He fulfills whatever whatever that person wants. He wants liberation, or he wants whatever, meaning personal, whatever he wants, Lord fulfills them. Just wanted to understand the context, contrast in relation to the costless mercy that you're talking about versus the endeavor the devotee puts in to get his mercy maybe sooner through his grace.
Thank you, Mataji. I think it's a very nice question here. The costless mercy, even though what it really means is that even though we don't deserve it, we put all our efforts, but it's not just because of our efforts that Krishna has given that mercy. And because no matter what kind of effort that we put, it's not going to really deserve that mercy of Krishna. So therefore, his mercy is costless. No matter how much effort we put, he's still merciful, because if we have to put our effort, and is it because of that effort that Krishna is pulling us out of the material existence, it's never going to happen. Therefore, our efforts have to keep going, but it is not because of the effort per se, that we cannot think that it's because of our effort that Krishna has come and pulled us out of this material existence, because it is still costless. So we keep putting the effort, and we keep putting the effort, striving for that mercy of Krishna, waiting for him to show that mercy towards us. And but we just cannot just be think that, okay, now I've put like so much effort, I'm in a position that I'm chanting Krishna's name 24 hours a day, and that is why Krishna has been merciful. It is really not doesn't really work that way, because Krishna, out of his costless mercy, he sees us and he's so happy with us, and then he pulls us out and he fills the gap whatever gap is there in our effort, he will fill it. He fills that. And he is, the other part is what you may say is like, would he also do it without any effort? That's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that Krishna is a transcendental autocrat. He can do anything he wants, even if there is zero effort. But then that is something like saying, okay, let's not put any effort. Let's just keep waiting. Maybe Krishna's mercy will come some billions and trillions of years after today. I mean, that is really foolishness. So to do that, but then if we do put the effort, and then we get Krishna's mercy, it is still not because of our effort. It is still only because of Krishna's causeless mercy.
Makes perfect sense, Prabhu. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, just to add to this answer, Prabhu, this is the essence of Damodar Lila, right, Prabhu?
Yeah. Please go ahead and explain, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah, because as we all know that Mother Yashoda tries to bond Krishna with so many ropes from her, from neighboring places, from gopis, Vrindavan, all houses. She tries to bind Krishna with the ropes, but it's again 2 inches less. The rope is 2 inches less. And after seeing all these efforts, Krishna, seeing the efforts of Mother Yashoda, how she is tirelessly trying to rope to the motor, then Krishna shows his causeless mercy. Then he comes under the control of Mother Yashoda. Then how she ties the Lord Krishna, the baby Krishna, to motor. So this in this pastime, we learn the same thing, Prabhu. So with our effort and Krishna's causeless mercy, the devotees can excel in their lives.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I have a follow-up question with whatever Gaurangi Mataji was saying, talking about committing sins unwillingly. So does it mean that when we commit sins unwillingly, it is a will of Krishna and it's a mercy of Krishna? Should we think like that? Because then when it happens, we get rid of the karma and it helps us to go back to Krishna. Does it mean like that? I mean, am I understanding it correct?
That should be the devotee's way of looking at it, because it's the perspective. So when you look at it unwillingly, when you commit sins, you're going to face the reactions anyway. So at that time, you will know whether you committed the sin or not, because the reactions will come. Then when you face the misery, you will know whether the sin was there or not. And then, but then the devotee's viewpoint would be that it is Krishna's arrangement that those sins were committed by you anyway. So there's just no point belaboring about why you committed that sin unwillingly, because the material world is that way, that we are bound to commit those sins perpetually. We are bound to commit sins willingly or unwillingly. And therefore, there is just no point beating ourselves by saying, oh, maybe I should not have committed that sin. I should have not committed the sin. It's just not possible to stop committing sins at all. And therefore, it's better to channelize that and focus it towards Krishna and see what is it that Krishna wants us to learn from that. Not the material lesson per se, because material lesson, what is there? I mean, it's not a big deal. But what is a spiritual lesson that we can learn from that? Because all these qualities, humility, tolerance, all these things are spiritual qualities. And what are the qualities that Krishna wants us to learn so that we can surrender unto him? It's not like, okay, I just did something wrong to this person, something, I just need to go fix that. That's not the thing there. I mean, it's like, what is the spiritual lesson that we can learn from that thing, and then just keep moving on, because those sins are bound to come. And if we are just stuck up in those, into the day-to-day drama that happens in the life, we will just be perpetually just stuck up in that. And therefore, we got to see what is it that we can realize from that event, or whatever is the sin that we have committed, and then what can we learn, and then see that we don't commit that again, and then move on. And then as those lessons are as those lessons are learned, it's very obvious for us how it'll be. Krishna himself will carefully design what is, in fact, for a materialist, the karma itself, whatever is they are facing, that is the plan, the every karma. So we should not just try to get rid of our all the sinful reactions what we are facing, because they are carefully designed so that we can go back to Godhead. And therefore, if we are able to see Krishna's hand in it, he might even rearrange some of those sinful reactions for us so that it is more endurable for the devotee. And the devotee also learns the lessons from it. So Krishna can, of course, change the reactions from karma, and therefore, and he can rearrange it in such a way that it's not like the devotee is completely doomed. The materialists, they are doomed because they have no hope. The reason why they have no hope is, even if they get out of one problem, the next big problem is coming in line. But for a devotee, that's not the case. Krishna will make sure that the next problem, it may come, it may not come. But if it comes, it will be the next stage of learning so that they are spiritually realized and they are able to go back. So that means basically there are two perspectives of looking at things, of all the problems. One is a Krishna conscious way of looking at a problem. And second, a materialist way of looking at the problem. The materialist way of looking at the problem, it is that consciousness that matters, the consciousness with which we look at the different things that happen in the material world. If we are able to look at the material world from the perspective of Krishna consciousness, then we will be able to see it from the true picture of why that problem has occurred and what is it that we can learn. Once we learn something from the problem, Krishna has no, what is the use for us to be put in that kind of a problem perpetually? That problem will go away. But then if you're not learning the lesson, then more problems are needed, because people generally learn only from problems. Artho jignasu artarthi jnani cha bharatarsha. So that even though people go towards Krishna for economic development, they go to Krishna towards getting knowledge, they go to Krishna towards sort of inquisitiveness, but these are all rare compared to the first one, which is distress. Distress is the most powerful out of all the four. And okay, economic gratification could be there, but it's very tightly bound with distress anyway. So distress should be invited, and we need to look at distress in a way which is going to help us in our spiritual enlightenment. So we don't actually have to think, okay, that maybe we are the person who are actually facing so many miserable things in life. Everybody is facing. Everybody is facing, whether they know it or not, they are facing. So the best thing to do is to look at it from a Krishna conscious perspective instead of a material perspective, and try not to solve the problem. The problems are not, they're not worth solving. It's like, what is the spiritual realization we can get out of the problem? That is more important than actually solving the problem. So we're all perpetually, this modern world is such that how to solve different problems, all these problems, solving the problem is not the goal. So we need to learn how to live with the problem. So that we don't even know that the problem really even exists in the first place. How to live with the problem is a Krishna conscious behavior, not to get rid of the problem. Problems are good. Let them just live side by side. And but we are not just thinking about the problem, but we are thinking about Krishna. That's the better way. That's the Krishna conscious way of dealing with it. Is it okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Very beautiful. When you said that if we try to learn from the problems, Krishna might even rearrange the things for us. That is really hope-giving statement, Prabhuji. Yeah.
You have to understand that Krishna is not even though everybody in this world is envious of him, he has still given so much facilities. He's given them everything. That means he is the most liberal person that we can ever see. Most liberal, because he's all kinds of people in this world, they have rejected him, they have envious of him, but still he's giving so many things. So that is his kindness. So what to speak of, he's giving to so many people. Why won't he take care of people who are even looking towards him?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Krishna is a perfect father.
We have to have confidence. We have to have confidence. We have to have if he has protected us in so many different occasions in our life, he'll continue to protect in the future as well. But the problem they were doing is that we want Krishna to protect us in the way we think that he should protect. That is the problem. But we should just let go and not control a situation and give the control to Krishna and let him treat us. Ashlishtiva padaratam pinishtavam marmahatam karotuva yatha tatava vidato lampato matprana nadastu sayeva naparaha. So that means let him treat however he wants. Let him, however he wants, that whatever he does, that is the protection. If he thinks that we need to get admitted in a hospital, that is the protection. If he thinks that we need to get hurt by somebody, that is the protection. Maybe because we are getting hurt by that person, maybe that is the reason why somebody else might not be coming to do a bigger harm to us. Maybe we went and stayed in a hospital because we got hurt today. And then when we were at the hospital, maybe our house was burglarized and it went into fire, and maybe he saved us from fire. So we don't know what is protection. That is the problem. We think that if Krishna acts in this particular way, that is protection. But that is not the case. Krishna has bigger plans. When he is managing so many universes, and when it's so inconceivable. That means that the Mayavadis, they're not able to understand how is it that a person who is having a bluish black complexion like this, a person with a flute, how is it that it is even conceivable that he can manage in innumerable universes? They are it's beyond comprehension for them that this little boy is able to do so many things. And that is where the faith of the devotee comes. The devotee has deep faith that Krishna will protect. What kind of protection it is, that the devotee does not need to know. Whatever Krishna is doing, that is protection.
Okay.
And in fact, anyway, I was going to say something, I forgot, but thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. The best is to stay with the problems instead of solving them. That's also very beautiful.
Yes, because if we see in this world, everybody is going to some psychologist, some therapist. Let's go solve that problem. Let's go solve this problem.
Yes.
Neither the therapist is able to solve any problem, because the therapist himself or herself is an illusion. And I mean, I'm not like, if somebody wants to go to therapist, it's up to them. But it's better to consult somebody who is actually not, who's at least striving to be not under illusion, and and that person will be the true well-wisher. They're not doing something for money. They're not doing something for just taking some money and giving some so-called therapy. That's not what they're doing. They are true well-wishers. I would tell my problem, if there is to a person who's in the path of realization, who's in the path of self-realization and God realization, that is a person whom I would, so you have to be very careful, seek the person, and then that Vaishnava is a true well-wisher, and they are able to give us very nice realizations about how to live our life, and how to go through the different problems. Because the problem, it's not the problem that's the main thing here. It's what is it that we want to realize from that problem.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Also, I really like that example of that you gave, a person who's acting in a drama and still he's aware of his actual life. That is a very beautiful example to explain it to someone who is probably new devotees. That's very nice. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you for connecting this verse with the relationship between Jivatma, Krishna, and Maya. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Should we stop there, Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just want to say something I think is probably obvious by now, or is it a say or a question? You know, the reason why it's useless or unimportant to keep trying to solve problems is because as soon as one problem is done, the next one is waiting, right? That's the main point, right?
Yes, that's one thing, Mataji. But the second thing is we don't even know whether that solving that problem is even a good solution for us. Maybe the problem, we think the first thing is our definition of a problem. We don't even know what a problem is. We don't even know what is good for us. We don't even know whether that problem is actually even a problem. And so when we have so many unknowns, what is it that we are even how are we even really going to even solve it for that matter? So what we think is problem may not be a problem for somebody else at all. And maybe it's a problem for us now. And maybe after a year, we think, oh, maybe that was really not even a big problem. I don't know why I was so worried about the problem at that time. So the best thing here is to accept that everything happens per the grand plan of Krishna, and accept that Krishna's plan. That is
which is our self-realization, right?
Pardon me, Mataji.
The big picture or Krishna's plan is basically just our self-realization, isn't it?
Yes, that we go back to him to have a relationship with Krishna. That is the goal. The goal is not to keep solving these material problems, because no matter what you solve at the end, everything is going to result in death. So everything is going to be taken away by time. Time is going to take away everything anyway. So what is the use of anyway solving all these problems anyway? So, and Krishna will take care. He's not going to just let us go and we have different things. Do we think that we can protect ourselves better than what Krishna can protect us? That's the basic question here. If we have confidence that Krishna can give a better protection than what we can protect ourselves, then we should let it go. Losing control, we need to let go control of situations. And that is a process. It takes time, it takes effort, and we can take small steps of trying to give up control in small things, and eventually for bigger things, we will let go.
I would say only that, maybe the remedial steps that we can take are those that for problems that interfere with doing our basic devotional service. Those kind of problems, I think, don't you think we should be trying to...
I'm just talking about material problems, Mataji. I'm talking about material problems. I'm not talking about spiritual problems. But the thing is, the material problem should not lead our material problem. We should not make it such that our spiritual life would also become a problem. We should not do that, because that means that if we are just so depressed and unhappy and everything, and then if it's affecting our chanting, then that is a problem.
Yes.
Then that is a problem, and that means, and Krishna is Krishna, depending on the amount of effort we have put, he will make sure that spiritually we are protected, that our chanting does not just stop. But if that stops, then that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah.
No matter what happens in the material life, we should not give up chanting.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Mataji. Thank you. We'll stop there, Mataji.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thanks to all the devotees for joining us and giving us your valuable association. Thanks, Prabhu, for a very interesting class. We can now end the call. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrta ki jai, His Grace Jayananda Gauranga Prabhuji ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.